Vampire, the Vampire Hunter, Part 1. I am a vampire. Those were the last words the vampire heard before I cut off his head. Take that, vampire. I spit upon the floor. I have no respect for vampires. My story began over a century ago. I was a free human being in a world of filthy vampires. I worked to train my mind and my body. I was at the peak of life when I chose the undeath. One must think like a vampire to trick them into turning you. There can be no thought beyond the bloodlust, beyond the disgusting lust for living as a vampire. The one who turned me was my first kill. I have just slain my 1000th vampire. The floorboards quake below my hovering, steady feet. It is the Vampirinicus. A red light emits from below before the blood starts flowing. It sprays from every space imaginable, soaking everything with a filth of delicious, pure red hell blood. I have angered the carrion of the vampire underworld. He has come for me. He explodes out of the floor, covered in human skins filled of blood. I lunge at the vampire with my sword. In its attempt to deny my blade its entry, it loses its arm. You will soon lose more than that, vampire. You must pay for your affront to the vampire kingdom, says the vampire. The only thing that my affront shall pay, vampire, to your vampire kingdom is further death, because you vampires deserve no better. But how did you become a vampire with such thoughts? It's not possible. It soaks in the hell blood, regenerating its arm. My hatred has made all of this possible, vampire, because my burning contempt gave me the human strength, the human resolve to remember who I am, to remember that I'm no accursed vampire. Ha! No matter, no mere vampire is strong enough to defeat the Vampirinicus. Even with that enchanted and mystic anti-vampire blade you have. How did you get it, minion vampire? I am no one's minion vampire. It is the Vampirinicus! Whatever. My blade is my business, especially to the likes of you. Fool, your power could never exceed mine, pathetic little vampire! I bare my fangs and fly towards the vampire with my sword. Just as I'm about to stab into its chest with my silver double wood-enforced mystical blade, the vampire is able to knock me to the side, smashing me through the already cracked wall of the slain vampire's residence. The sword pierced the chest of the vampire, but not its heart, and became lodged. Blood flows into the wound from the floor. Perhaps I shall kill you with your own blade, vampire hunter, it says as it pulls the sword out of itself and takes in its heft the weight of my expertly crafted vampire killer sword. I'd honestly like to see you try, vampire. Never has there been a finer tool for killing vampires as my precise weapon, nor shall there ever be. Together, only 2 vampires have escaped our combined wrath. It was made for me, for I made it to destroy vampires before I became a vampire. The story of the vampire killer blade is for another time, however, for at the moment, there is a vampire most putrid who must be dealt with. Now, my pathetic little vampire hunter, are you prepared to fight a true vampire? A vampire who is? A vampire who never had the weakness of humanity? I watched you change into a vampire. It was the same as any other. You are no different, and I will squash you as such. Do you not think that is what I wanted you to believe, vampire? You stupid vampire. I am the Vampirinicus! The vampire comes at me with my sword. I counter the vampire's slash and send him flying behind me into the kitchen, turning the fridge into flattened scrap metal. A lucky shot! I know you are only human at mind. That is why I will personally eat your weak vampire heart. I tell you what, vampire, I'll give you one free shot. Your confidence will be your downfall, vampire hunter. The bags of full human skins sway and shift with the filled blood as it, the vampire, begins to make its move towards me. Blood pours out of the mouths and eye sockets of the skinned containers when it makes its move. The vampire killer comes down hard on my collarbone. I, of course, take no damage as the vampire's arms convulse and burst outward, leaving small stumps. The vampire stumbles backwards, and my blade begins to fall to the floor. I catch vampire killer and slide it back into its sheath. How? How? The vampire shouts at me in pain. One's own soul cannot harm them, vampire. You would know that, will you not, soulless vampire sewage? The vampire rips off one of the blood-filled human skins with its teeth and consumes it, regrowing its arms in an instant. Are you ready for round 2, vampire? I grin, displaying my fangs, and ignite my eyes in their depth of forsaken vampirosity. Enraged and frustrated, it jumps at me. I dodge each of its attacks easily. The left arm, I move my right shoulder and lean back. The right arm, I move my left shoulder and lean back. I then jump to the ceiling and withdraw vampire killer. I cut the human containers from the body of the vampire as I run overhead, faster than it can react to. Almost too fast for it to process. The vampire's human skin splash upon the floor, spilling out their gallons of blood. Just before I can land, the vampire's tail catches my leg and smashes me through another wall. Sheetrock powder explodes into the bathroom as I break through a toilet, rolling into the sink, smashing it too. A thick red blood gushes forth from the broken pipes. I begin to pick myself up, for the vampire approaches. It enters through the doorway. My decorations! You anger me at every turn, vampire hunter! You cannot make it out of this! Shut up! I pick up the bathtub with one hand and slam it down onto the vampire, separating the head and torso from the arms and legs. They wiggle on the tiled floor before bursting into flames. Vampire blood gushes out from under the tub. I jump up, standing on top of it, unsheath my blade, and remove the front of the tub along with the vampire's head. Normally, this would have killed a vampire, but not the Vampirinicus. I plunge my sword into the chest of the vampire, touching its heart ever so slightly to hear the final words from its disembodied head. You may have been able to defeat me, the Vampirinicus, but there are more. Those who began the vampirismus. Your time is short, vampire hunter. They, the truly pure vampires, the vampire demonic, they are coming for you. Send them. Send every vampire. Send your vampire slaves, your vampire minions, your vampire warriors, your vampire kings, your vampire queens, your vampire demons, your vampire devils, and your vampire gods. I will destroy them as I have destroyed you. It will merely save me the search. You will pay for your affront to the vampire kingdom. I make the final killing push through the heart of the vampire with the vampire killer. The blood absorbs into it. I stand there as the body of the vampire quickly dissolves into nothingness. I wait in case there is more vampire to come. There is nothing, only the destroyed apartment of my 1,000th slain vampire. I leap out of the nearest window, breaking through the barricade to light, and out into the brightening sky. Standing upon the roof, staring at the sunrise, I know I must move onward, because even if there is one vampire left in the world, there are still too many vampires.
Ooh.